I just call them the musty bunch, man. The musty. The social media. I think that's where the sport has changed. I don't think he would have been given another opportunity had he failed.
A black person, at least in this country, when your white counterparts get away with being average, you have to be 10 times better, 10 times smarter, 10 times more efficient than everybody in the room.
That's one curry goat I will not eat, because that will have me sitting on the toilet for weeks. Nah, I don't want that. So my name's THANOS. I'm not human. I'm an alien, so I don't really give a shit. Half the time, I try not to even engage with them. As soon as they turn up in my comments, I just block all of them. I'm like, I have no time for idiots. So.
Yo, it's your boy AMG Dens, the usual co-host on Stripping the Dipping. Listen, I might have to remix my name to DJ Dens because today I'm recording a certified banger with a legend of our community. Our guest today, he's the truth. There's fire in the booth, but this guy has fire for the streets. And it's a shame actually that we don't have him on our other segment, the 8 p.m. debrief cookout. Quick little plug there, because his Twitter live spaces are pepper and flavor for days. So listen, guys, I need you guys to give a huge round of applause and welcome our special guest today. We have the one and only THANOS 876. THANOS, how's everything going, man?
Hey, I'm good, man. Thanks for the intro. A legend. Oh, I thought I was more of a troublemaker that annoys everybody on the timer. But legend. I'll take that. That's a very nice compliment. Thanks, man. But I'm all right. I'm just at home on a Friday afternoon chilling, so let's get it started and see where we get to.
Oh, absolutely, THANOS. Well, it's a pleasure to have you on. I know, like you just mentioned there too, we're on the social media, we're on the Twitters, and there's a certain fan base, quite a salty, quite a kind of ignorant orange fan base that like to kind of like run their mouths, but at the end of the day, we just tell them the truth and we just tell them the facts.
Yeah, I just call them the musty bunch, man. The musty. They just smell musty. Half the time, I try not to even engage with them. As soon as they turn up in my comments, I just block all of them. I'm like, I have no time for idiots. So let's keep it moving, man.
Of course. Well, we have to move on the productive, but also the positive side too, THANOS. So I agree with it, And that's Definitely. The thing, THANOS, we know that, you've been watching Formula One avidly for many years, In fact, I even know that like one of your favorite drivers as well when you're getting into F1 was Mika Hakkinen.
Yes,
so one
sir.
Of the, a legendary driver as well, for sure, and gave us many, years of excitement, throughout the late 90s and early 2000s. So for our listeners at home, THANOS, tell us more about your earliest F1 memories and, how does that kind of experience stack up with the modern day kind of thing that we have today by today's standards?
I think my origin story, I tell everyone this wherever I go, was I got into Formula One because of my mom. She is a massive Mika Hakkinen fan. She loves him to death. And I was, when I moved there, I was one Sunday afternoon, ITV. If anybody knows, Sunday afternoon on ITV, Formula One comes on with ad breaks and all of them things. And I was just going through the channels and I came across it. I was like, what's this? And Mom's like, oh, that's Formula One. And she started to tell me about it and, Mika Hakkinen. And I said, all right, cool. Let me just start watching it. And I just, from there, the love grew. I got, deeply into it. I've tried not to miss any races or anything like that. So that's where my story started. And, I felt at the time, I didn't really have anybody to share that sort of passion with. Because again, in the Afro-Caribbean community, we tended to more gravitate towards football, basketball, cricket, the more conventional sort of sports. So to find someone who's like me and say, oh, I watch Formula One and, they like it. It's like, it was kind of, it wasn't existent. It didn't exist at that point in time. and you had to get the news about it from buying the Autosport magazines. I think they used to come out every Tuesday or every Friday. I can't remember. But you used to go to the corner shop and you get a magazine. It was like £2.50, I think it was, for a magazine. And I used to buy them every weekend, after every race, and I'd read them, and so on. So what's really changed now is just social media. I think social media has made the experience more, a bit more better, because I can share that passion with a larger group of people, rather than, I watch it on a Sunday on my own, and then that's it. I don't have anyone to talk to about it, because again, none of my friends are really into that. My brother was into it. He's a Vettel fan, but he's kind of like moved away from it now. He's into MotoGP and that sort of stuff. So, social media is kind of like giving me a bigger platform to, share my passion with people who also share the same passion as myself. So that's my thing.
Absolutely, Thanos. And I agree with you as well in that kind of sense. It's interesting, like how technology has played a role just in the way people consume the sport, the way people enjoy it, and kind of share that kind of conjoined passion for it as well, as you mentioned. And even for me, I remember like my dad bringing in the Autosport magazines, and then seeing some of the illustrations, seeing some of the technical articles. It wasn't just Formula One as well. It was like WRC, MotoGP, World Endurance.
Yeah, BTCC, and at the back, they had all the lower category racing as well. Plus, they used to have the back where they sell all the cars, the old racing cars, and all these things. So, that was where you'd have to actually consume all the information about the sport. But now, again, with the advent of technology and how easily information is readily accessible to us, like at a drop of a hat, it's there. You don't have to, go searching down the place or waiting a week to get the information out. I think social media, that's where the sport has changed the most rather than actually what we see on track.
Absolutely. And just the way that it's evolved as well, and even just the way we consume the information and talk about it as well is really engaging. And actually, another thing I wanted to ask you as well, Thanos, man, because we as just a community as well on Twitter, we support one of the greatest, not one of the greatest, he is the greatest of all time, Sir Lewis Hamilton. And in relation to that, Thanos, like, you've been following Lewis's career from a very early stage as well. What is your first impressions of Lewis when he burst onto the scenes? And, what do you think's been the key, even from his junior karting career, throughout his dominance with Mercedes, to his breakout year where he absolutely demolished that saltfish patty, Fernando Alonso, just like, what's your take on him been, and just what makes him so special and enigmatic in the way that he's revolutionized the sport and changed the face of Formula One?
I think he's authentic himself. I think that's what, he's passionate. He's just passionate about racing and competing. When he burst onto those bright-eyed, giggly-eyed kids. When you get that new toy at Christmas, how excited you are. That's what you saw from him at the beginning. It was just like you could see the passion, you could see the dedication in his eyes, and this kid, you could tell, this is someone special. And to come into an environment where basically, no one looks like him. Let's be real. No one there looks like him, acts like him, talks like him, dresses like him. So it's an unfamiliar environment, and for him to come in and go like, well, you know what? In the beginning, he had to, follow the rule book as written by Ron Dennis, because Ron Dennis was a stickler for. I think he pretty much had OCD. He couldn't grow a beard, he couldn't have piercings, he couldn't have all of this, and at the beginning, he kind of felt, you could tell he wanted to come out of that box. You could feel it, like he felt like he was restricted in who he in expressing who he was, because in the lower categories, that's not how he was. He had a big ass afro in the lower categories. He dressed when you saw him dressed in the paddock, he dressed a bit like, you know, like a normal black kid would dress on a weekly basis: jeans, t-shirt, baseball cap, and all of that things. Trainers and so on. But then when he got into Formula 1, he had to conform to an environment that didn't really cater for him. Whilst it was new for him, it was also new for everyone else within that environment, because they're like, okay, this is the new kid. He's a black kid. How do we deal with a black kid in Formula 1? We've never had this before. So how do we approach him? How do we talk to him and all of these things? But so all of that had to change. And I think I've always said he's the best thing that's ever happened to Formula 1. He's the biggest news story Formula 1 has ever had, because his impact on the sport isn't just what he does on track. It's a cultural impact as well, because he has brought Formula 1 to a bigger audience. We've got more people, especially black people of color, more following Formula 1 than we would have normally been doing. So his presence here is huge, and he has delivered, because you'd think for someone coming into such an environment, he would find it hard to, the pressure was on. He had to come in and he had to perform, because if he hadn't, I don't think he would have lasted as long as he has. Because it's a situation whereby I don't think he would have been given another opportunity had he failed when he joined McLaren, because people would have looked at him like, yeah, sorry, you're not ready, because if you failed at McLaren, we don't think you're ready for it. And he had to come in and he had to do his business. He did his business, and he's been doing his business ever since then. I don't think we've ever seen anyone as performed at such a consistent level for such a lengthy period of time from their very first season in the sport. So, that's how I saw him. I just saw him as just this bright-eyed kid that just loved what he did, passionate, and he was damn good at it, because you could see it from his junior categories coming up that, this was the real deal. And he's proven it time and time again, despite everyone keep asking him to prove himself over and over and over. And no matter how many times he has proved himself over, someone still wants him to prove himself again. And he keeps doing it over again, because that's what he does. I hope that answered your question.
No, Thanos, I think it really did. And, to add to that and to supplement those points as well, Thanos, I think it's a thing with Lewis where he's not just okay, he's not just average, he's not just good. I think the way that Anthony drilled Lewis, as in Anthony Hamilton, his dad, he drilled Lewis to be excellent. It wasn't okay for Lewis to just be okay or to just be subpar, to just be average. I think Anthony raised Lewis just like, many of us as well, me and you as well, our parents raised us to be phenomenal, because as a black person, at least in this country, when your white counterparts get away with being average, you have to be 10 times better, 10 times smarter, 10 times more efficient than everybody in the room. And I think
I agree with that, because Anthony realized it's Formula 1 is an elitist sport. Let's get that out there. This sport was started for rich white men who had the money, who wanted to go and do a bit of racing on a Sunday afternoon. That's the origin story of Formula 1. So it's not something that you can just, like football, you could walk down to the local JD Sport or Niketown or wherever it is and buy yourself a football boots, shorts, a football, and just go in the park and start kicking about, and eventually you progress from there. Formula 1 requires, to get into motorsport, requires a vast sum of money, and especially being a black kid, the only black kid, you can't, as you said, you can't just be good. You have to be great, because the guy who is just the white kid who is just good will get us a pass. If you're both just good, you're not going to get a foot up on the ladder over that white kid who's good, just like yourself, if you get what I mean. So you have to be 10 times better than him. And this is why I said, there's always this conversation that, oh, he was signed to McLaren at a young age. And I keep saying to people, do you think that's a good thing, or do you think that made it easier for him, or that made it harder? Because I think it made it 10 times harder, because he was in a position where, okay, I'm the black kid now in the room. Everybody's looking at me. And worst of all, to make matters even more, added more pressure, I've signed with McLaren. McLaren, who look at the names of drivers who've driven for McLaren: Senna, Lauda, Prost, Hakkinen, Raikkonen, you name it, the list goes on and on. So it's not just like any and anyone. You're talking about the biggest names in the sport have driven from McLaren. So he went into that, and he wasn't allowed to fail, because if he failed at any point along that journey, he was more likely going to lose his contract. And I think he said it. He said that, I remember he did an interview, and he said basically part of the agreement with his contract when he signed for McLaren was he had to win every championship that they put him in. He couldn't go into these championships and be like a Nicholas Latifi, where he's in there for like 5 years. No. The maximum he could stay in each championship was like 2 years. So he had to basically win everything in either his first or his second year. So you talk about pressure. You know what I mean? So, and again, as I said, it's an elitist sport. He's a black kid. He had to be 10 times better than the next person just to get to where he is. And it's something, and he dealt with it. I don't think many people could have dealt with that, being the only one, in that position, and then make it all the way to the top. Because let's be honest, if we're being honest here, there's like millions of Lewis Hamiltons out there. Millions. We'd be kidding ourselves if we think he's the only one. There's many out there just as talented as he is, but the problem is they won't get the opportunity to show that. He got that opportunity, and he realized, look, this is the opportunity. I cannot screw up. I cannot waste it. You have to grab the bull by the horns, by the ears, but you have to grab onto that bastard, and you have to hold on tight and ride him all the way to the top. And he has ridden more than one bull. You know what I mean? Because his rise to the top, whilst he was with McLaren, it still wasn't an easy ride, because everyone was looking at him. You're with McLaren, let's see what you can do. So you have to give him credit for that.
Oh, absolutely, Thanos. And, speaking on that kind of note as well, it's a real shame that after all of these accolades, all these achievements, all the good he's done for the sport, not just on the track, but also outside the track, to give people that have less of an opportunity a representation, to fight for sustainability and to help the sport reach different markets it wouldn't reach. Next question on this kind of topic I wanted to ask you, Thanos, is what do you think will be the financial ramifications for F1 and Liberty Media in terms of their viewership and the ticket sales when Lewis does eventually move on from the sport?
As we saw with Michael Schumacher, it's going to have an impact on the sport. Because, again, you're talking about his social media following alone. If you add up all his social medias that you're talking about, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, I think he has a combined 40 to 50 million followers over all those platforms. I think that's like 15 to 20 million more than the next person, which I believe might be Daniel Ricciardo. I'm not 100% sure, but don't quote me on that. So you're talking about, so when he goes, a large portion of those people will be switching off Formula One. So that's ticket sales going down at events. British Grand Prix, ticket sales is going to go down. Merchandising is going to go down. Eyes on TV is going to go down. They're going to lose money. There will be some financial ramifications for his departure. No doubt. It'd be nonsensical to think that it wouldn't happen. The question is, how long will it go on for? And who's going to replace him as the face of the sport? someone that the sport can actually market to a wider audience other than white Europeans. If you see what I mean, because
Sure.
I've always made the argument you cannot sell Max Verstappen to anybody other than white Europeans because he has no endearing qualities. He has nothing appealing about him that you can look at and like, yeah, the average man on the street would look at this guy and like, yeah, we can somehow relate to him. You look at Max Verstappen, he looks like, what are you gonna? What's this guy like? He just looks bland. He's like, he's like vanilla ice cream. He's just bland and boring. So you cannot sell him. So Liberty Media will have to find some way of, finding a way to market Formula One to, to the same audience to regain those eyes that they're going to lose once he steps away. And are they going to do it? Are they going to do that marketing as a product? Or are they going to try and focus on one particular person? Because let's be honest, Lewis gets Formula One into places that Formula One you would never normally hear Formula One. If you understand what I mean.
Sure, absolutely.
You look at the places, you look at the shows he's been invited into, to appear in and all of these things. I saw someone post a picture the other day, like they were in Tate Modern and they saw Sebastian Vettel. And I'm thinking, Lewis turns up to Tate Modern. Everybody's going to know he's in Tate Modern. Vettel can walk around Tate Modern and no one knows, unless you follow Formula One. You would know that, oh, that's Sebastian Vettel. This guy's won 4 championship. He's one of the best we've seen in the sport. Yeah, because there's nothing endearing about him. He's not kind of like someone you can push to the forward and get conversation started in rooms that otherwise Formula would not be in. If you understand the point I'm making, it's just that he gets Formula One to a broader audience, a much bigger audience other than mainland Europe. So you have people now in the Caribbean who are heavily invested in Formula One. That's a market that's previously you wouldn't think people in the Caribbean would be so interested in Formula One. Same thing in Africa. Yes, people in Africa has always watched Formula One, but now you realize they have a massive following in Formula One. And majority of that following stems from Lewis Hamilton being in Formula One. And who are the new followers of Formula One now? It's not males, it's actually females.
True.
Are the largest, the larger demographic, newer demographic of viewers of Formula One are females, and majority of those females are black. And who are they gravitated towards? Lewis Hamilton. So when he goes, a lot of them are going to like, yeah, I don't want to watch it no more because where's the representation?
True.
As like you said, representation matters. And I'm in the same boat. I've always said, once he goes, my interest in the sport will not be as hardcore as it is now. It would be like, yeah, if it's on, it's on. I'll watch it. But you're not gonna find me going out my way like I'm gonna plan a weekend around the Formula One race. Mm-hmm. Not gonna do that anymore because again, there's no one there that I feel like I connect with in any way, shape, or form. Because no one there has a story that I can look at and say as a person of color, like, yeah, I can understand where he's coming from. So they're gonna feel it, but it's a matter of what's their succession plan for when he goes. How are they gonna recoup all of those eyes and that dollar bill when he goes? I wish them luck. That's all I can say.
Well, me too as well, Thanos, because, to me, they never showed that appreciation that they should have had for Lewis. They never showed that respect they should have had for Lewis, and this is the thing, people sometimes only realize how good they had it up until it's gone. And I think that's the kind of system and kind of like symptoms that they and these people will have to kind of suffer, because if, like my parents would always say to me, if you don't hear, you must feel.
All the hearing must feel.
Yeah, there we go,
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. These people, I think, until they feel it in their wallets and they see how much, loss it will be for them when Lewis does eventually move on. And that's the funny thing as well. Like when Lewis moves on, his career is not going to stop. His career is just going to begin because then the guy is such a star. He's got music, he's got fashion, he's got all of these causes as well with veganism and stuff like that as well. His career is starting. Lewis could live 3, 4, 5 other careers if he wanted to, with the like talent and just like the eye for detail that he has as well. Whereas for these guys that are stuck back in the Freddie Flintstone days, they got a lot to learn. I think that might be the awakening call, the rude awakening call. They need Thanos. So
yeah. And if you listen to Lewis, he said once he leaves Formula One, he's done with Formula One. He's not going to come back in the paddock and be a commentator like a Jenson Button or a DC. He said, no, because I've got other interests outside of the sport that he's already building his, as you said, his second career for once he goes. He's into his fashion. He's into his philanthropy. He's into movies. I mean, he posted a picture of him and Jerry Bruckheimer on a movie set. I mean, he was supposed to have being apparently what's the guy's name? I can't remember his name. Is it Hangman in Top Gun? He was supposed to play that role in Top Gun, and apparently the reason why he didn't play that role was because at the time they were filming, it was in the middle of the season and he couldn't get and he had to forego the role. I think the guy's name's Danny Ramirez. I can't remember what his role was in Top Gun. I think it was Hangman or Wingman or something like that. So he's set himself up for once he leaves someone, that's it. He's done. Has other things to do. But you were saying something, and I completely lost track. I wanted to come in, but if I remember I'll come back to it. But no, I don't remember. But anyway, let's move on.
It's okay, but it's like, listen, and if you remember as well, just feel free at any time to jump in too, because this is why we have this platform, and we're so grateful to have you on. But to talk on some other news, Thanos, I hope you got your dumplings, I hope you got your mutton, I hope that you got them nice foods there, Uncle, because today was the end of goat Tiffy, as they like to call it. The goat actually got curried. Because
that curry didn't cook. That curry must be one of the most insipid, taste bad curries you'll ever have in your life. I don't want none of that. That's one curry goat I will not eat, because that will have me sitting on the toilet for weeks. Nah, I don't want that. So his departure is like, when did he come in? Because I don't even know when he joined Formula One, to be honest. I think he's 2 years over. He stayed 2 years. He overstayed by 2 years. He's welcome. He should have been kicked out of. Williams should have let him go ages ago. But I think Williams are to be blamed for him being there because they needed the money. That's why he stayed in Formula One, because they needed the money. The guy was in GP2 for how many years? I can't even remember. I think 4 or 5. I don't remember how long he was in GP2 for. And he was never really like a title contender during that time in GP2. So to bring him in Formula One, he wasn't it. Funny enough, I saw what's his name? Sean Kelly, I think that's his name, the stat guy, virtual statman. Put out a tweet that apparently he has the best race finish for Williams in a conventional race, which was 7th in Hungary. Which means that's a better result than even George ever had, or even what's his name, Nick de Vries had the other day. I'm surprised by that. I wasn't aware of that, but even so, the guy shouldn't be in Formula One. He's not good enough. I mean, we knew he was going to go this year. We knew they were going to drop him this year, but they probably should have just dropped him after what happened in Monza, because that's just embarrassing. You mean to tell me the guy Nick found out he was racing on the Saturday afternoon, out-qualified you and out-race you, and he wasn't in the car for a full 2-3 weeks? Come on, man. I to be honest, I don't really have no feelings about him leaving because like, okay, cool. He was a bum anyway. He should have. I mean, he should have been gone a long time ago. But hey, here he is. But what I didn't like though, I see people tweeting saying, he cost Lewis Hamilton his 8th championship. I'm like, yo, he didn't cost Lewis shit. He was driving like everybody else and he crashed. Crashing is not. He didn't set out. Yes, his crash set out a series of events, but he didn't influence the decision that came after. So I don't think it's fair for people to say, he cost Lewis the championship, because I don't think he did. We know what cost Lewis the championship. Nothing, and that's the only absolute that we know. But he should have been gone a long time ago. So good riddance to him. I mean, he's rich. He can go and eat all the Nutella he wants in the world. I just, just get him away from Formula One. He shouldn't be, there shouldn't be talk of him, potentially signing with this team as a reserve driver or that team I wouldn't even make him a simulator driver, to be honest.
I was going to say, Thanos, that'd be an insult to them as well.
Yeah, just send him to some other series. Let him go racing some backbush series down in Tennessee or Alabama or somewhere where nobody can see him. Just get him off our screens and get him out of our sight, because I mean, the guy he's awful. He's bad. So good riddance to him. Wish him all the best. Not really.
Same here, Thanos. And that's the thing, I think people will look at it on a human level and say, well, this is a kid that's going to lose his job. But just like you as well, he's had his opportunity. He's had his time in F1 and he didn't make the most of it. And for me as well, the thing that triggers me, Thanos, the thing that gets me vexed when I see Latifi in that seat is he's rubbing, another kid that could be brilliant, a next kid that could change Formula One, another kid that has the ability, has the talent, has everything for them. The only thing they don't have is like a rich father that could put them in a position like that. He's undisputably taken that opportunity away from them. And we know with Formula One that, it's hard to get teams on the grid. Right now, Stefano Domenicali and Ben Slayam, they're catching their asses to get, more people in the sport, because they're saying that they want Audi and they want Porsche. Red Bull and Porsche have had a very inconspicuous breakup, which doesn't surprise me with the amount of fraud that happens at that team. Audi, yeah, okay, but they, to me, don't have the excitement that Mercedes.
Oh no, but Audi basically buying Sauber. That deal, that's pretty much what we've seen is they've just announced the engine supplier deal. But I think within the plan is to buy the team outright over the next 3 years. So by the time we get to 2026, new 2026 engine formula, new set of power units, the team should be known as Audi, Sauber, or Sauber. I don't know what it is, whichever way they're gonna name it, because I think I read somewhere where Peter Sauber still wants to have some form of minority ownership or whatever, just in case if they decide that they're going to pull out, they want to sell, he has the option to buy the team back and carry it on as a going concern. So that's cool. But I mean, like you said, Latifi, from a human perspective, I don't care. I have no sympathy for him whatsoever, because at the end of the day, this is a performance result. This is a results-based sport. Sports is all about results. And if you're not performing, that's on you. You have to go. And if you look at it in football, in every sport you look at, if you're not performing what they do, they're going to replace you. It's pretty much that simple. I have no sympathy for him whatsoever, because he wasn't performing. He got exposed by Nick de Vries. You getting exposed by someone who's only been in the car for like half a day. That tells you're really a bum. You shouldn't be here. And he was in Formula One for 2 years too long. But what I hope this does now is it gets rid of the pay drivers mentality, because now drivers who are getting the seat based on their abilities rather than how much zeros that the dad can write on the check to give to a team, because I can understand why at the time Williams signed Latifi, because again, it was still a family-run team. It was in debt. They needed the money. So had he not signed, that it would have probably gone bankrupt.
Sure.
So we understand. So from that perspective, I understand. But now that, they have the budget cap comes into play, they know how much they need to spend to develop the car. So they don't, and they score points in the championship. Points in the championship means more, you get money out the pot and so forth. So it's probably an easier thing for them to deal with now, to keep the business going. Plus, it's been bought by it's a hedge fund company, Darlton
Capital. Yeah,
it's a hedge fund company. So financially, they I guess they're in a much better place than they were when they signed him. So losing him now won't be a problem. What I want to know is who are they going to put in the seat? Is it going to be Nick? Is it going to be Logan Sargent? Who is going to put? Because I don't think that Ricciardo is going to end up going to Williams, because boy, that's even that fall from grace is
it's a mad one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just massive. It's embarrassing if he ends up at Williams, because then he'd just be going to Williams just for driving and just collecting a paycheck, because he's not going to help them move forward. So I think that seat probably should go to someone who's young, who you can build around. Again, Nick is there. If they're not going to give it to Nick, then you can go Logan Sargent, or what's this guy name? Mick Doohan's son. I don't know his first name.
Oh, Jack Doohan, yeah.
Yeah, or Jack Doohan, or somebody, because you have to blood in new drivers in Formula. You can't keep the same old guys over and over, going back for this, so on. Because I made the argument that I think Aston Martin was wrong to sign Fernando Alonso, and people are like, what do you mean? That's madness. Why wouldn't you? And I'm like, look, Aston Martin are currently investing something in the region of almost £500 million into revamping their factory at Silverstone. They're building new infrastructure, they're building the wind tunnel and all of these things. So they're investing in the team with a long-term goal of they want to succeed. Why go for Alonso? Alonso is 41 years old. He's not going to win you a championship. So he's a short-term plan towards a long-term goal. So I'm thinking, why didn't you go out and get somebody who's young, roughly the same age as Lance, right? And you build that team around these guys. Because Alonso is only going to be good for 2 years. Then what happens after? Then you're going to have to go out and find somebody else to replace him, when you could have gone out. I made the case that why not go for Djokovic? And so said, so done. What they did, they signed him. He's the first signing to their driver program. And I'm thinking, that's the man you should have gone out and signed to replace Vettel. Bring someone young in, and you build a team around him and Lance, and you move forward as a collective. You have Alonso. You all know what Alonso's history is. The guy's a problem wherever he goes. He's never gone to somewhere where and there hasn't been some form of nonsense that kicks off with him. And then you're going to pair him with Stroll Senior. That man looks like he doesn't take shit from nobody. So you don't put two combustible elements in the same environment. It's only going to take the smallest of sparks for that whole thing to explode. And I can see it exploding because we know who Alonso is. So Latifi going, they talk about, as you said, people talk about the human side of it and whatever. Sorry, my name's THANOS. I'm not human. I'm an alien, so I don't really give a shit. You know what I mean? I don't really give a damn. You saw me whoop Hulk's ass, right? So I don't really care much for Latifi.
Oh, Thanos, that was brilliant. That was a punchline there as well. Georgina needs to put that in the trailer, but absolutely. And actually, a short whistle-stop question before we get into the other questions as well, Thanos. Like, who would you say is the worst driver in F1 history you've come across? And who would you say is the most overrated driver you see people talking about and rating highly on the Twitters when really they're not all that sus.
Bloody hell. Who is the worst? Jesus. Oh, I think
It's a deep one, isn't it? Because there's been so many.
That's a tough one because who came to mind? I was gonna say, what's that guy? Is it the guy who he was a test driver for Ferrari and he drove one? I think it's Luca Badoa.
I remember that when the spring hit Felipe Massa in the eye. Yeah,
he drew. Yeah, in 2000, was it 2009? Yeah, 2009. Mm-hmm. He drove one race for them, and it was the I think I honestly can't remember. I think the dude was like 3 seconds a lap slower than the slowest person on the grid. I was like, yo, this is embarrassing. And I'm convinced, and I'm sure that guy drove in Formula One before he became a test driver for Ferrari. So he came to mind, and I'm thinking, okay, Luca Bordeaux, but then I could probably go with Karun Shandok or
HRT.
Or Narain Karthikeyan. I don't think Narain Karthikeyan was that bad, but I could go with him. I could go with who else? I could go with. Oh God, Mazepin. Yeah, you could throw Mazepin in that as well. The hat. Oh, damn, that's a tough one, man. That's a tough one. But I'm going Karun. You know, I'm going Karun.
Go on,
because I'm just I'm just gonna be petty and just say Curran because I think the guy's an ass. Him and his ashy elbows. His ashy elbows. I'm gonna go Curran simply.